Hi, my name is Iwona and today I will talk to you about previews in Lightroom. Lightroom is a tool for organizing your photos and for editing them, but it's very important to know that Lightroom is working efficiently and pretty fast because it's not opening an actual raw file every time you want to view it in your library mode, but it's actually using previews to show you that those files on your computer, and you can store like thousands and thousands of photos and still run efficiently and pretty fast while going through your photos. But you can make some decisions regarding the type of the preview that you are looking at. You can make those decisions either while importing your photos into Lightroom or later if you already imported. So I think it's important to understand how Lightroom previews work to make the right decisions for you. I'm going to show you, if I go to import, you will find, like in file handling on the right side, you will find build previews. And if you go to that little menu, and then you will see 4 options. And those 4 options are minimal, embedded, and sidecar, standard, and one-to-one. So those are different sizes and different types of previews that you can choose. So while importing your photos to Lightroom, you make a decision on what type of previews you will be looking at while it's going to your photos in library mode. If you choose minimal or embedded, it means that the Lightroom is not going to build any previews for you. It's just going to use the previews that were built in and created by your camera. So those previews were supposed to make it possible to look at the photo on the back of your camera when you took the photo. And right now Lightroom just can use those previews that were already built in to show you those photos in library, which has pros and cons. Pros are that one thing is that you're not building anything, so it's going to take a little faster for you to import the photos from your disk, from your SD card, because it's not going to take any time to build in previews. And the other thing is not going to take more space because those are already embedded there. So those can be like the smallest files that you can find. Those are the minimal ones, and they can be like the bigger ones that were embedded, and those embedded in sidecar. And the other 2 options are standard and one-to-one. Standard and one-to-one means that a Lightroom is going to build in its own previews, and it's going to take some time, but those previews will be definitely bigger. And about the size of the standard preview, we can make some decision. I will show you where in a moment. And one-to-one, of course, it's a one-to-one version of your raw file. So for example, if you were shooting with a 24 megapixel camera, this is going to be a preview like 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. So it's going to be just like a one-to-one size of which is of course going to be huge, but on the other hand, it's going to be very, very smooth going from library mode to develop. But the downside of it is that it takes time for Lightroom to build in those previews. And the other thing is that will take your disk space, and if you're struggling like I do, because I work on a laptop and I struggle with that disk space all the time, then I'm very cautious about those, especially about those one-to-ones, but also about standard ones. Right now, I imported some photos with embedded preview, so I didn't build anything, which was great for me because I was importing that on a workshop, and I didn't want to spend any time waiting for those previews to be built in, and I just wanted to go straight from the shooting into editing those photos in my Lightroom. The downside is if I go through those in my library mode, the preview, especially on a big monitor, it looks a little like unsharp. It's not that the photo is unsharp, it's just like the preview is very small, so it doesn't show any details there. So I have to remember when watching, when going through those photos, I have to remember that that might be a little better quality. If I and I'm not able to usually zoom in, because instead of zooming in 100%, it actually zooms out, because 100% is smaller than my actual size of my monitor. And if I want to see, take a look and see if the photo was sharp, I actually go to develop mode, which builds in a for a moment, it builds in a preview, which is used for developing. If I go back to library mode, it goes back to my embedded preview. And the other thing is that those previews might, that embedded preview was built in using a certain type of key to read in, which is called profile. And the profile in my camera was different than profile in my Lightroom. Usually, if you go to develop mode, and you will see that Lightroom usually uses Adobe Color as the default profile, and your camera might be using a different one. For example, you probably notice that sometimes in your camera you can find something like portrait or landscape, and that changes the way the preview looks. But altogether, it's the same file, just like the preview was just built in with using a different key. So you have the same information in a raw file, but the representation of that is maybe a little different. So for some people, it's very annoying that their photos look differently in their library mode than they look in that develop mode. And well, you can kind of work with that, and you can make it a little better for you if that is really annoying for you, by creating a preset for your photos and importing those photos with that preset. And I'm going to create a new video for you about that. And if you're watching that video at the moment that I release it, it's probably not there. But if you're watching that video a little later, that you have to just go through my channel and find a video about creating presets. Okay, so we already know that if you're importing with an embedded or a minimal, that Lightroom is not building in any previews, and if you're using standard or one-to-one, Lightroom is building previews, and those standard or one-to-ones are built in using Adobe profile, and that should not change between library and develop mode. But if you're using an embedded, that might change, might look a little different. So if you already imported, like I did, with embedded preview, you can click on those two arrows here, and you can, right now it shows you the box asking if you want to build in a standard preview, so the preview that is going to be created by Lightroom. You can build all for that session. It doesn't mean it's going to build all for all your photos in your Lightroom catalog. It's going to build only for that session. You can build a selected one, so only for that photo, or cancel. So what I usually do, I import everything with an embedded preview, and then I go and reject the photos that I don't want to edit, and I'm sure that I'm not going to edit this one. And after like the first selecting, I delete the photos that I don't want to use, and then I can build in the previews for the rest. So that saves a little of my disk space. And I already told you that you can choose the size of your standard preview, and you can go to Lightroom Classic here to catalog settings. If you're using Windows, that should be under Edit. So go to Edit, and you will find catalog settings over there. And in here we have file handling, which and you will see standard preview size. And this is by default it's auto, so it's going to choose the best preview size for your monitor. And so I did not change it at all, but you can, if you have any if you have a reason to change that, you can change that in here. And about those one-to-ones, I usually don't create one-to-one previews, but if you do, of course, those are going to take a lot of your disk space, and you can easily, and of course, after like 2 months, after working on a certain session, you don't really need to keep those previews from like session that was done many years ago, and Lightroom will remove those for you. And you can choose like how often it's going to remove those one-to-one previews in here. So it's usually set by default to 30 days. If you're working a lot in Lightroom and if you're creating a lot of those one-to-one previews, you can choose to delete them after 1 week or even after 1 day. And because I already told you that I struggle a lot with the disk space on my laptop, I pay a lot of attention to the total size of my preview file in Lightroom, which right now is 6 gigabytes, so it's not bad. It's but sometimes it goes up to 30 gigabytes after I had a really busy time with my editing. And if I go to General here, it's going to show the location of my Lightroom catalog. And if I click here, it's going to take me to my Finder and show me my Lightroom catalog and all the folders and all the files that are there. And one of the files is called Previews, and right now it's 6 gigabytes. Right now it's counting, right? 6 gigabytes. The same thing was shown here in file handling. Which is fine for me right now, but I remember that I sometimes had like moments where I desperately needed some disk space on my laptop, not on an external drive, just on the laptop, for something that I was doing. And what I once did, actually I did a couple of times, so I just took that Previews file and basically deleted it. And so what happened was that Lightroom did not see any previews that it created, but it's because the raw files still have those previews built in, and then it just started using those previews that were built in, and with time it started kind of rebuilding the previews that I just deleted. But what that did was it made my work in Lightroom a little more difficult for some time, because then I had to kind of recreate all the previews. But on the other hand, it really helped me to immediately find some disk space, especially those are like 30 gigabytes, which were actually what I needed at the moment. So if you delete that, nothing really bad is going to happen. Lightroom is going to build in those previews back, so don't worry about this. But this is really a situation without any other choice to delete that previous file. I think that's mostly it about previews, but there is one more option that you might probably learn on, like if you go through YouTube videos about previews. Probably a lot of people will tell you about smart previews. So smart previews are something a little different. Basically, if you want to work in Lightroom still needs to have the access to the original. Even if it's working actually on previews, it still needs constant access to the raw file that is on your disk. If you black the disk off, if you take it away, if it's not connected, it's not going to see the raw file. It's not going to let you work on the file. But if you create a smart preview, you will be able to work on that file without having the access to the actual raw file on your disk. So to create a smart preview, you can either do it whilst importing. You can click here, build smart previews, and it's going to build the smart previews to everything that you're importing at the moment. And if you haven't done that whilst importing, you can always click here when it says original photo, and you can build in a smart preview at this moment. What it does, I usually don't use that in everyday work. Sometimes if I want to work on a plane, or I'm going somewhere and I'm not taking my disk with me, because it's on a server at home, so I can't really take it or have online access to it, I can build in some smart previews for myself, and then work on those photos while traveling. So this is the only reason why I would use that. But I know there are a lot of people working on those smart previews on daily basis, which I don't do at the moment. But if you want to know a little more, I'm sure that you can find a lot of information about that too. So this is all from me about my about the previews. So just to sum it up, I usually import with embedded previews. I do the first calling, and then after that first calling, I delete the photos that I don't want to edit, and after that I build in the previews for the rest of the photos, which I'm going to select from. And I usually build in the smart, the standard preview size, not the one-to-one. And that's it. I hope that you enjoyed the video and it was helpful for you. If you want to learn how I actually edit my photos, not in Lightroom and in Photoshop, you will find that on my website, iwonapodlasińska.com, where you will find something called for photographers, and then you will see single videos and collections are those single videos packed into bundles where you can buy a lot at once and just save some money. And the other thing that I really want to recommend to you is my Light and Story video workshop, where I not only show you how I edit, like a whole session, you can see me shooting, and I will tell you everything I know about the light, composition, color, and shooting, and all my settings, and all the equipment that I use, everything I do on a photo shoot. Like I usually tell people on my workshops, but this time you can watch it at home. You don't have to travel anywhere to find me somewhere in the world. Just go to those videos and you will know everything. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time here on YouTube. Please click the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye.